3 years ago, I almost lost everything because of my neighbor's jealousy. Today, he works for me and doesn't even know I'm his boss. Let me tell you how I turned the biggest sabotage attempt of my life into my greatest business opportunity. This story involves corporate espionage, hidden identities, and a $2.4 million contract that changed everything, proof that sometimes your worst enemy can become your greatest asset. My name is Alex. 6 years ago, I was just an ordinary guy with a dream of starting my own landscaping business. I'd always had a passion for design and outdoor spaces, turning my own backyard into a small paradise that friends and family couldn't stop complimenting. My journey to entrepreneurship wasn't straightforward. I grew up in a blue-collar family where my father worked the same factory job for 35 years. Stability over dreams was our family motto. When I told my parents I wanted to start my own business, my father just shook his head. "You're throwing away a perfectly good career for a pipe dream," he said. That perfectly good career was a soul-crushing corporate job where I spent 60 hours a week in a windowless cubicle designing landscape plans for properties I would never see in person. Every day, I'd watch my designs get watered down by cost-cutting executives until they resembled nothing of my original vision. The final straw came when my boss took credit for my design that won our company its biggest contract. He received a substantial bonus while I got a $50 gift card to a steakhouse. I spent 2 years secretly saving, learning the business side of landscaping at night while working my day job. I lived in a tiny studio apartment, sold my car for a used truck, and ate ramen more often than I'd like to admit. Finally, with $28,000 saved in a business plan that I'd revised 17 times, I quit. The beginning of Green Vision Landscapes was even tougher than I'd imagined. I operated out of my garage with equipment I bought secondhand. Many nights I slept on a cot right next to my lawn mowers because I'd worked too late to drive home. My first 3 clients were my mother's friends who hired me out of pity. One of them actually cried when she saw my rough hands, calloused and cut from labor they weren't accustomed to. Then came my breakthrough project, Mrs. Hernandez, a retired art teacher whose garden I transformed with a minimalist Japanese-inspired design that worked within her very limited budget. She happened to be part of the local garden club, and suddenly my phone started ringing. Word spread through 3 neighborhoods, and within a year, I had hired 2 employees. By the end of the second year, I had a team of 6, 3 trucks with our logo, and a small but growing reputation for creating unique outdoor spaces that outshined competitors charging twice as much. That's when Victor moved in next door. He seemed friendly enough at first, a well-dressed man in his early 40s with an expensive watch and a Mercedes that seemed out of place in our modest neighborhood. He mentioned he worked in property management, though he was vague about details. We'd exchange pleasantries over the fence, and he'd often comment on how busy my business seemed to be. "You must be doing well," he'd say, watching my crews leave in the morning. I've always admired entrepreneurs. There was something in his eyes when he said it, something I couldn't quite place at the time. Victor quickly became known in the neighborhood. He hosted lavish barbecues and talked about his previous success in California. He even offered me business advice occasionally, suggesting I expand more aggressively and leverage my success before competitors catch up. At the time, I took it as neighborly encouragement. What I didn't discover until much later was Victor's true identity. His real name was Vincent Mercer, and he had run Coastal Landscapes, once one of the largest landscaping businesses in Southern California. His company had imploded spectacularly after several lawsuits from clients who discovered he had been substituting premium materials with cheaper alternatives while charging luxury prices. There had even been a small segment about his company's downfall on a local business news program. He'd legally changed his name, moved across the country, and was living off the last of his hidden assets, money he'd transferred to offshore accounts before declaring bankruptcy. Seeing my honest business grow successful from his window every day wasn't just uncomfortable for him. It was a daily reminder of everything he'd lost through his own unethical practices. Even more disturbing, I eventually discovered he'd deliberately chosen to move next door to me after researching up-and-coming landscape companies in the region. I wasn't a random neighbor, I was a target from the beginning. The problem started small, almost imperceptible. A client called confused about why we'd rescheduled their appointment when we hadn't. Another mentioned receiving an email saying we were no longer taking new clients. I apologized and blamed it on miscommunication within my growing team. Then came the online reviews. 1-star ratings from people we'd never worked with, describing problems with services we'd never provided. They killed my prize roses, claimed one review, though we'd never done any rose garden work. The owner showed up drunk, said another, despite the fact that I don't even drink. Equipment issues began next. Our newest riding mower suddenly had sugar in its gas tank. A shipment of expensive Japanese maple saplings for a project mysteriously died overnight, though they'd been perfectly healthy when delivered. The irrigation system we'd installed at a local restaurant began malfunctioning, making us look incompetent. The financial impact was immediate. 3 major clients canceled their contracts. My newest employee quit after only 2 weeks, later admitting someone had contacted him claiming to be a former staff member warning him that the company was about to go under. I installed security cameras around our small office and equipment yard, but found nothing conclusive. I started working even longer hours, personally checking every piece of equipment before the day's work and double confirming all appointments with clients. The stress was taking a toll. I developed insomnia and lost 15 pounds. My remaining employees could sense something was wrong and morale was suffering. I even started to doubt myself, wondering if I was truly cut out for running a business. Through it all, Victor was increasingly friendly, offering sympathetic ears during our talks over the fence. Running a business is brutal, he'd say. Maybe you should consider selling while you still have something to sell. He even casually mentioned he might know some investors who could take it off my hands. Then came the incident that changed everything. After months of networking and preparation, we had landed our biggest opportunity yet, redesigning the common areas for Oak Ridge Estates, an upscale community with 50 luxury homes. This single contract was worth $2.4 million over 3 years, more than all our previous jobs combined, and would establish us as a serious player in the regional landscaping industry. Our presentation to the Homeowners Association was scheduled for Monday morning. My team and I had spent 3 months developing innovative designs that incorporated sustainable water features, native plant gardens, and a unique community gathering space. We created detailed 3D renderings, comprehensive cost breakdowns, and even built a scale model of the central feature, a tiered garden with a natural filtration system. The Sunday night before our presentation, I was working late at the office, making final adjustments to our proposal. I left around 11 p.m., thoroughly exhausted but confident in our presentation. At 5 a.m., I returned to print final copies of our materials, only to find the office door slightly ajar. Inside, disaster awaited. Our computers were gone, along with the external hard drives containing our backups. The scale model was smashed beyond repair. Even the printed copies of our designs were missing. Someone had systematically destroyed or stolen every element of our presentation. I fell to my knees in the middle of the office, surrounded by the wreckage of 3 months of work. In 4 hours, I was supposed to deliver the most important presentation of my career, and I had nothing to show. I called the police, but without obvious signs of forced entry and with no witnesses, they simply filed a report and left. I then called the Oak Ridge Estates Board and requested an emergency postponement. They reluctantly agreed to give me 48 hours, not the weeks we'd need to recreate everything from scratch. Desperate for answers, I checked the old security camera we had installed months ago. It was a basic system with only 2 cameras, and I rarely reviewed the footage. To my surprise, the system had captured something. At 2:13 a.m., a familiar figure in dark clothing and a baseball cap slipped into our back entrance using what appeared to be a key. The resolution was poor, but there was no mistaking the distinctive limp in his walk. It was Victor, my seemingly friendly neighbor. The footage showed him methodically filling a large duffel bag with our materials, then using his phone to photograph our design boards before taking them too. He spent almost 40 minutes in our office, careful to take or destroy everything related to the Oak Ridge project. My first instinct was to confront him immediately, maybe even violently. I had never considered myself capable of physical aggression, but in that moment, watching him systematically destroy my life's work, something primal awoke in me. I actually found myself in my truck, driving toward his house, before logic reasserted itself. I needed more than grainy security footage. I needed to understand why he was doing this and what his endgame was. Most importantly, I needed to find a way to save my business in the Oak Ridge presentation. I called my cousin Marcus, who worked as a private investigator 2 states over. I need everything you can find on a Victor Mercer, and I need it fast, I told him. While waiting for Marcus's information, I drove to Victor's house and parked where I could see his driveway, but he couldn't spot my vehicle. Within an hour, he emerged, loading what looked like presentation boards into his trunk before driving away. I followed at a safe distance, eventually watching him enter a small office building downtown. The sign on the door read Premier Landscape Solutions, a company I'd never heard of despite knowing most local competitors. Through the window, I could see Victor unpacking materials that looked disturbingly similar to our stolen designs. I took photos with my phone, documenting everything, then returned to the ruins of my office to begin the impossible task of rebuilding our presentation. My team arrived, shocked by the destruction. When I showed them the security footage, Mike, my foreman, wanted to confront Victor immediately. Sarah, our horticulturist, broke down in tears over the lost plant catalog she'd spent months developing. Instead of giving in to despair, we formed a plan. We have 40 hours, I told them. We're going to rebuild enough to keep Oak Ridge interested, and then we're going to find out exactly what Victor is planning. My team was incredible. We worked 36 hours straight, fueled by coffee and determination. Sarah recovered some plant selections from her personal laptop. Mike remembered enough of the irrigation system design to recreate the basics. I rebuilt the 3D renderings, though without the fine details of our original work. What we created wasn't as polished as our original presentation, but it captured the essence of our vision. We printed everything just 2 hours before the rescheduled meeting. Our eyes red from exhaustion, but our spirits somehow intact. When we arrived at the Oak Ridge Estates clubhouse, the first person I saw was Victor, sitting confidently in the back row. He momentarily froze when he saw me, clearly not expecting us to have anything to present after his sabotage. The board chairwoman, Mrs. Donovan, called the meeting to order. We have 2 landscaping companies presenting proposals today, she announced. First, Green Vision Landscapes, followed by Premier Landscape Solutions. As I walked to the front of the room, I noticed Victor texting frantically on his phone. I began our presentation with an apology. I want to thank the board for accommodating our rescheduled presentation. Unfortunately, our office was broken into earlier this week, and many of our materials were stolen. Several board members exchanged concerned glances. Nevertheless, I continued, we believe so strongly in our vision for Oak Ridge Estates that we've worked around the clock to recreate our proposal. Despite our exhaustion, the presentation went surprisingly well. We emphasized the sustainable aspects of our design, native plants that would reduce water consumption by 40%, solar-powered lighting systems, and community garden spaces that would foster neighborhood connections. What we lacked in polished visuals, we made up for with genuine passion and deep knowledge of the property's unique challenges. When I finished, there was appreciative applause. Mrs. Donovan thanked us and then called, "Now, Premier Landscape Solutions? Mr. Mercer, you're up." Victor strode confidently to the front of the room. "Good afternoon. I'm Victor Mercer, founder and principal designer at Premier Landscape Solutions." He launched into a slick presentation with stunning visuals that made my heart sink. They were clearly based on our stolen designs, but enhanced with additional renderings we hadn't had time to recreate. As you can see, Victor continued smoothly, our comprehensive approach integrates water-saving technologies with aesthetic appeal. He was showing our exact irrigation system, the one Mike had designed after months of research. I could have exposed Victor right there in the meeting. Part of me wanted to stand up and point out each stolen element, to watch him crumble in public humiliation. But another plan was forming in my mind, one that required patience. When Victor finished his presentation, Mr. Harrington, one of the board members, asked, "Your designs are remarkably similar to Green Vision's approach. Are these common solutions in the industry?" Victor barely missed a beat. "Great minds think alike, but I believe our execution and attention to detail sets us apart." Before the board made their decision, I requested something unexpected. Given the similarity in our visions, I'd like to request a 1-week postponement to enhance our proposal. I believe the community deserves the absolute best options before making such an important investment. To my relief, Mrs. Donovan agreed. "We'll reconvene next Monday. Both companies are welcome to submit revised proposals." Outside in the parking lot, Victor approached me with a smug smile. "Tough break with that robbery. Strange coincidence, wasn't it? Your little postponement won't help. My bid is 15% lower than whatever number you quoted." I just nodded politely. May the best design win. As soon as Victor drove away, I put my plan into motion. First, I contacted my lawyer, Elaine, who filed emergency copyright protection on all our designs, including detailed documentation of the stolen concepts. "This is clear-cut intellectual property theft," she told me, "but proving it in court could take months." Next, I called my cousin Marcus again. "I need everything you can dig up on Victor Mercer, or possibly Vincent Mercer, within 48 hours. And I mean everything: financial records, professional history, current status." Marcus delivered. Victor was indeed Vincent Mercer of the failed coastal landscapes. He had $127,000 in hidden assets but over $800,000 in debts. He was renting his house, and the Mercedes was leased under a business name. His premier landscape solutions consisted of a hastily created website, business cards, and a small rented office space downtown. No employees, no equipment, no capability to actually execute the project he was bidding on. Most importantly, I learned about his design background. Before his fall from grace, Victor had been considered one of the most innovative landscape architects in Southern California. He had won several prestigious awards and had been featured in design magazines. His bankruptcy hadn't been due to lack of talent, but rather from mismanagement, cutting corners, and burning bridges with suppliers and clients. The final piece came when Marcus discovered Victor's financial situation was dire. He had maxed out credit cards and borrowed money to create the illusion of premier landscape solutions. This Oak Ridge project was his last shot at financial redemption. He was quite literally betting everything on stealing our contract. Armed with this knowledge, I could have pursued legal action. I could have presented the evidence to the Oak Ridge board or the police. But something about Victor's desperation resonated with me. I remembered my own struggles, how close I had come to failure in those early days. And I couldn't ignore his obvious talent, even when it was being used against me. So I made a decision that my team thought was insane. Instead of trying to destroy Victor, I would try something entirely different. I created a shell company called Elite Design Partners, using a college friend as the public face. We set up a website, business cards, and a temporary office in a co-working space. Then, through my friend, we reached out to Victor with a surprising offer, a position as lead designer for a new high-end landscaping consultancy. The email was carefully crafted. Mr. Mercer, your design work at Coastal Landscapes was exceptional. Our firm specializes in high-concept landscape architecture without the burden of implementation. We offer competitive compensation and creative freedom for the right talent. The salary offered was generous, $120,000 per year plus performance bonuses, but required an exclusive contract and immediate availability. Most importantly, the position would be remote, with all communication going through my friend or email, keeping my involvement completely hidden. 3 hours after sending the email, Victor called the number provided. Within 24 hours, desperate for financial security, he signed the contract without ever meeting his actual employer or me. His first assignment? Redesign the proposal for an upscale community called Oak Ridge Estates. The client has seen several proposals but feels they lack innovation. We need fresh concepts that will transform the property while adhering to sustainable practices. I provided him with basic information about the property, information any competing firm would have, but nothing from our original designs. I wanted to see what he would create on his own, without theft as a shortcut. What happened next surprised even me. Victor's work was nothing short of brilliant. The designs he submitted weren't simply variations of our stolen concepts. They were entirely fresh approaches that showed remarkable innovation. His water conservation system was elegantly simple yet effective. His plant selections were bold but appropriate for the climate. The community spaces he designed felt both intimate and expansive. Most telling was how he approached the project's biggest challenge, a sloped area prone to erosion. His solution, a terraced garden with native grasses and a subtle drainage system, was more elegant than anything my team had developed. As I reviewed his work, a realization struck me. Victor wasn't just a thief trying to take shortcuts. He was a genuinely talented designer who had lost his way. His desperation had led him to sabotage and theft, but his true gift was creation, not destruction. I incorporated many of Victor's designs into our revised proposal, crediting them to Elite Design Partners, a consultancy firm recently engaged by Green Vision. My team was confused at first, but when they saw the quality of the work, they understood my strategy. The day before our second presentation to Oak Ridge Estates, I called Victor through my friend's phone. The client loves your work, I told him. They want to meet the designer in person at tomorrow's presentation. Can you be there at 10 a.m.? Of course, Victor replied, clearly excited about the opportunity. This could be the beginning of a beautiful partnership. Indeed it could, I answered, allowing myself a small smile. The next morning, I arrived early at the Oak Ridge clubhouse. Victor was already there, dressed in his best suit, anxiously reviewing printouts of his designs. He didn't notice me approach. "Hello, Victor," I said calmly. He looked up, momentarily confused by my presence. "Alex? What are you doing here?" "I have an important meeting with Elite Design Partners," I finished his sentence. "Yes, I know. The blood drained from his face as realization dawned. You're behind Elite? I nodded. Interesting how you can create such beautiful original work when you're not stealing from others. Victor sank into a chair, his legs seeming to give out beneath him. So this was all some elaborate revenge scheme? Get me to create designs for you, then expose me. Not revenge, I replied, sitting across from him. A test. And you passed. The work you did this past week is extraordinary, Victor. It shows what you're capable of when you rely on your own talents instead of taking shortcuts. He stared at the floor. You could have reported me to the police for the break-in. You had the security footage. I still do, I confirmed, along with documentation of everything you stole. But that would just be another person with talent wasting away. What happens now? He asked, his voice barely audible. That depends on you. Option 1. I present our proposal alone today, you walk away, and we pretend none of this happened, though I keep the evidence in case you try targeting another small business owner. Option 2. We walk in together, present the collaborative work as exactly that, a collaboration, and see if we can build something legitimate moving forward. Victor looked genuinely shocked. You would still work with me? After what I did to your business? I'm not offering friendship, I clarified. I'm offering a professional opportunity based on what I've seen you can do when you're not sabotaging others. The position at Elite Design Partners is real, though the company structure will change. The salary is real too. Your choice. Victor was silent for a long moment, his eyes fixed on the designs spread across the table. Finally, he spoke. I've spent 3 years trying to rebuild what I lost in California. I cut corners, lied, and eventually stole because I thought that was the only way back. I never considered just doing the work honestly again. He looked up at me. Why would you trust me after what I did? I don't trust you, I admitted, but I trust your talent. And I think you're smart enough to recognize this is your last chance. After another long pause, Victor nodded. Option 2. Let's present together. Mrs. Donovan and the board were surprised to see us walk in together, but they listened intently as we presented our collaborative vision for Oak Ridge Estates. Victor explained the technical aspects of his designs with genuine passion, while I outlined our implementation strategy and commitment to quality. When board member Mr. Harrington asked about the sudden collaboration, I simply said, great talent shouldn't be confined to one company. We decided Oak Ridge deserved the best of both worlds. 2 days later, we received the news. Our proposal had been unanimously approved. The $2.4 million contract was ours, with a performance bonus if we completed the first phase ahead of schedule. The transition wasn't smooth at first. My team was understandably skeptical about working with someone who had tried to destroy our business. Victor struggled with the accountability and transparency I demanded. There were heated arguments, threatened resignations, and moments where I questioned my decision. The turning point came 3 months into the Oak Ridge project. We encountered a major issue with soil contamination that threatened to derail our timeline and budget. Victor disappeared for 2 days, and I feared he'd abandoned us. When he finally returned, he brought with him a completely redesigned approach that addressed the contamination issue while enhancing the overall aesthetic. He'd spent 48 hours researching, consulting with environmental experts, and developing a solution that not only saved the project but improved it. Why did you disappear instead of just telling us what you were doing? I asked him afterward. His answer revealed much about his past. At Coastal, whenever we hit a problem, I was expected to hide it and find a quick fix that looked good but wouldn't last. This time, I wanted to find the right solution, not just the expedient one. I didn't know how to do that with everyone watching. From that point on, we established clearer communication protocols. Victor gradually earned the team's respect through consistently brilliant work and a newfound commitment to transparency. The Oak Ridge project was completed ahead of schedule and under budget, earning us the full performance bonus. That first success became the foundation for remarkable growth. With Victor's design innovation and my focus on honest business practices and client relationships, Green Vision Landscapes expanded rapidly. Within 18 months, we had tripled our staff and opened a second office in a neighboring county. Victor officially became our design director, with an equity stake in the company that aligned his interests with our long-term success. The Elite Design Partners name was repurposed as our high-end consulting division, with Victor at the helm. Our partnership wasn't without challenges. Victor occasionally slipped into old habits of cutting corners when deadlines loomed, and I had to establish firm boundaries. There were heated disagreements about design approaches and budget allocations. But underneath the professional tensions was a growing mutual respect. Perhaps the most remarkable outcome was how Victor's network from his coastal landscapes days became a valuable asset once he rebuilt those burned bridges. Former clients who had sworn never to work with him again were impressed by his design evolution and our company's reputation for integrity. One by one, they became Green Vision clients, exponentially expanding our reach into luxury markets. That was 3 years ago. Today, Green Vision Landscapes has grown into one of the largest landscaping firms in our state, with over 60 employees and projects spanning 3 states. The Oak Ridge Estates project won 2 national design awards and became a case study in sustainable community landscaping. Victor and I have developed what I'd call a respectful partnership, if not quite friendship. He's channeled his competitive nature into outperforming other design firms rather than undercutting colleagues. The damage he once caused has been repaid many times over through his contributions to our company's growth. Last month, in an ironic twist, we acquired the remaining assets of a struggling landscaping company. As we went through their client list, Victor recognized the name of the firm that had purchased his failed California business. "Life comes full circle," he remarked with a hint of a smile. My neighbor still doesn't know that I know his full history, and I've never confronted him about the break-in or sabotage. There's something powerful about holding that knowledge quietly while watching him channel his talents constructively. Sometimes at company gatherings, I catch him looking around at what we've built with a mixture of pride and something like redemption. Throughout this journey, I've reflected often on what might have happened had I chosen a different path. Legal action might have brought temporary satisfaction but would have consumed time and resources while destroying Victor's remaining potential. Pure revenge would have lowered me to the same tactics I despised. Instead, I found a third option that transformed an enemy into an asset, not through forgiveness alone, but through creating a structure where his talents could flourish while his worst impulses were kept in check. I've learned that sometimes your biggest threats can contain hidden opportunities if you're willing to look past the obvious response. Success isn't just about protecting what you build. It's about recognizing potential in unexpected places, even when that potential is buried beneath someone's worst behavior. Most importantly, I've discovered that the most satisfying victory isn't destroying your enemies, but transforming the relationship entirely. Victor once told me, during a rare moment of candor, "You didn't just save your business. You saved me from myself." That kind of impact, changing someone's trajectory, that's a success beyond any contract or award. So if you're facing sabotage or betrayal in your own journey, I'm not suggesting you immediately hire your enemies. But I am suggesting you look beyond your first instinct for revenge. Ask yourself, what potential lies buried beneath this conflict? Is there a solution that elevates everyone rather than just punishing the wrongdoer? Sometimes the person who tried to destroy you might be the missing piece that helps you build something greater than you imagined. And there's a certain sweet satisfaction in watching someone who wanted to see you fail become instrumental in your success, perhaps the most effective revenge of all.